greatness, excellence, motivation. Always be a gem.
Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Great Employees Matter, the podcast that focuses on employees. We are, in fact, employee-centric, trying to raise employees from average to great, giving them the skill sets, the mindset to be able to do that, and working with employers to teach them how to recognize, promote, and appreciate their most valuable asset, their employees. That's what our podcast does every week. Thanks for joining us. This week's guest is Carter Singh. Carter is a senior project executive at Westcare Properties. We'll talk a little bit about that, but more importantly, he has a story that is absolutely remarkable. We know you're going to love the interview, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kobe, and he can bring us in as he does every week.
And you know we love Remarkable. So speaking of Remarkable, you Remarkable Gems, make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow. It helps us get these great messages out there to people. You know, we don't do drama. We don't do any kind of silliness or craziness. We talk to real good people, inspiration, and we get a lot of gems out of it. So join us on the journey. And with that, I want to say welcome to the show, Carter. How are you, man? I'm excited to have you in.
Amazing. Thanks for having me in.
Yeah, so I'm going to cut right to the chase. You know, my job is to usually just talk to you and open up who you are as a person. So I want to say, first off, are you from Vegas, or if not, what brought you here?
I'm from Palm Springs, California. I moved to Vegas 8 years ago. And what brought me here was, I had a couple businesses. Actually, Absolute Defeat brought me here.
Okay.
And then Vertical Construction. But yeah, I was in my alcoholic addiction, and my problems pile up on me. They became astonishingly difficult to solve. I shut down my businesses, and I just moved to Las Vegas by direction of, I didn't know it at the time, but it was the best move I've ever made. And God first, I probably is the best answer to say. And, I had to get a restart.
Oh, man, we're coming in hot, and I love it. I'm going to back you up just a little bit, man, because obviously you've been through some stuff. So tell me about your school. Tell me about school and growing up.
Well, I grew up from from an average, our average blue collar family. I don't know. Everyone in my family owns a business that I knew of, actually. Aunts, uncles, everybody. It's California. Just everyone seemed to be in their own business. And my dad was a contractor in Palm Springs and built a lot. Started with pools and things and ended up with a big excavation civil business. And we grew up doing that. So
Did you get a work ethic from doing that type of work with your dad, or?
Absolutely. I mean, being able to get up every morning and tune your radio to WORK has been, that's what people hear from me most. You got to get up and tune your radio WORK and get busy, whether it's physical or mental, spiritual, whatever it is. But man, thank God for my dad and my mom for instilling in us a work ethic. But we had no choice. I went to work at 7 every summer. Like every summer in my house, you had to go to work. And my mom said, take these boys with you. And so we were working. Work was just part of life. And, we're pulling weeds, canning fruit, whatever we're doing, we're always doing it in our house, cleaning. And so work ethic, because you can work yourself out of a lot of stuff,
Oh yeah. And so did you just stay there, or did you, as you got older, go on to other types of jobs or work, or did you just kind of stay in the family business?
Well, this funny thing happened to me when I was 5 or 6 or something years old, and I don't know if it has to do with a past life experience or something, but like my first grade teacher, and she called me when she called me 5 years ago and said, I've always thought of you, and you're one of my favorite, if not my favorite student back in like, early 70s when I was like 6 years old. But she asked me one time, she says, she asked, everybody asked this question, so it wasn't just me, but what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, oh, I know. I wanted to be the president of the United States, and I wanted to serve my country. I don't know where it came from, but it was embedded in my head. And so along with that, some of my pre-memories or dreams or things that I had were of the 18th century and our founding. When I was a kid, I don't know, I had a lot of those. So I don't know where they came from, but like Benjamin Franklin and all the founding fathers of our country. And so I thought I wanted to print, and I wanted to be an inventor, and I wanted to do stuff for my country. So one time when I was probably 8 years old, my older brother came home from high school, and he showed me some stickers he made. He's like, look what I made. I said, where'd you make that? He said, in print shop. I said, print shop? I said, oh, I'm going there. So when I, I don't know, I just loved doing everything that was put on my plate. I took print shop as soon as I could. And then by the time I graduated, I had 28 semesters and of that before I graduated high school, and competed in VICA back in those years in the early 80s, Vocational Industrial Clubs of America, and, did really well. And at the same time, I needed to serve my country. So as I worked for my dad, I worked 2 or 3 jobs up until I was 40, and printing, cooking, in junior high, my other brother said, hey, take commercial foods because you get to eat. And if you take it, 6th period, it's better. So I'm like, okay, cool. So took commercial foods, and from 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade, they award one person the best cook, and I won it each year. Just telling you the enthusiasm for whatever and the focus on what we're doing, So 7th grade, I beat all the 9th graders and so forth. So I cooked, I printed, and I worked construction most of my time. And then I met my printing instructor, Mr. Andrade, and he guided me for the first part to the Air Force. And then my uncle, who I'd spend more time with after my life, guided me to the Navy when I'd, enroll in naval aviation.
Wait. Did you go to the Air Force and the Navy?
No, I was going to join the Air Force. And then my uncle, he said, oh, you want to join the Navy? And he motivated me to go to the.
All right. Cause I was going to say, my dad's definitely channeling through you right now, because one of the main things that he used to say was WRK. He always says, I'm not going to the radio station, and he used to call it WRK.
Nice.
Right. And then when you said that, my dad went into the Army and did that successfully, did everything. Once he got out, he decided he wanted to fly planes and went into the Air Force right after. So that's why I was saying, man, if you did both like that, I was going to say, okay, this is not a coincidence.
Yeah, well, there's no coincidence anyway, so he's probably still channeling.
Yeah, facts. So, but my next question for you is, you said that you took a hard fall. What brought you there? If you don't mind talking about it.
I don't mind talking about it. Just, in my family, in the blue collar part of it, can say they were overachievers, but for being alcoholic and in recovery, I started drinking at 12 years old. But what contributes to that is the spiritual malady. I mean, whatever we do is a manifestation of what's going on inside of us. So overachieving, underachieving, drinking, food, sex, drugs, however it manifests. Porn for some people, or whatever it is, the addiction, mine was that. But it's a spiritual sickness that occurs from a rupture of trust, and then we build a false sense of self when we're children, and then we rely on that, and we're actually codependent. So we're codependent on our false sense of self, and then we go through life dependent on what others think of us or what I'm able to falsely identify as important through, other people until I completely burn all them out and myself, because I never had the source in me, the real source of power. I don't know if that makes all sense or not, but
it makes sense, but it kind of disrupted my question, because you said, I asked you when did something happen, but you said you started drinking at 12.
yeah.
Nothing could possibly happen at 12 to drink for you to drink it, right?
Well,
so I'm just thinking that you just developed a habit over time and it became really bad.
That's not how it works. If you're a real one and you have a real addiction, it happens most often as a child. And then we develop. So the spiritual malady, the spiritual sickness occurs usually sometime during the symbiotic stages. Most often, I don't want to put absolutes, but let's just say, abandonment, neglect, abuse, and overgiving are the causes of spiritual sickness. And what they say is, you're not worth my time, attention, and direction. And a rupture of trust exists from people only that we trust. And then my soul and my will become separate, and the soul becomes grandiose. So grandiosity is overachieving and underachieving, romanticism, magical thinking, justice seeking, peacemaking, melancholy. So I come from an overachieving family. And so I became an overachiever as well as other things. But what happens as a child is I begin to manipulate the world, because at the core, I don't know that I'm lovable, wanted, or acceptable as a human being. And I'm always trying to get that answered. And as I go throughout my life, and when it continually does not get answered, or when I think that what I think is love, you answer me in love, and it still doesn't work, then I do certain things to get the question answered. And when that answer is a no, I enter into what we call a queer mental blank spot, and I become unpredictable in my responses and reaction to life. And so at 12 years old, I just wanted to die, because I felt lost. I felt like I had a hole in my soul. And, I experienced some things as a child, which I thought were happening to me and not happening for me. And, so when I was, I said at 12 years old, I went to the high school, it's a drive-in movie theater with some older kids. They gave me a fifth of Southern Comfort to sip. I took a sip, and then I ran and I drank the whole thing, and I never gave it back, because it fixed me. And that's what being a real one happens to you when you whether you're an overeater, when you begin to eat sugar or food, it fixes something inside you. You're trying to feed your soul. Carl Jung says we have a low-level craving for God, and we get a little bit of that fixed when we feed it one of our addictions for a small period of time.
Man, I appreciate you correcting me on that and thanking me. Spirituality. That's incredible. So the next question I have for you before I pass it on over to Jimmy is, how did you overcome? Because you're doing good today. I think you said you're in recovery. You got a great career for yourself. Every time I see you, you're in great spirits and great energy. What was the turnaround for you?
I mean, the turnaround was for me, being an overachiever helps, but it also, the turnaround happened when I moved to Las Vegas. It was a long surrender of 26 years of, being dry or sober for 20 of those years and 6 wet. But the turnaround came when I surrendered my life completely to God. And I just started walking in that centeredness. Did somebody
Ask you to do it, or did it come to you? What made you do it?
I had to surrender all of my being. I just know it comes from wanting to surrender all that I had become as a human being. I didn't like it, and so even from work, you're talking about being a good employee. I've been a good employee and a bad employee, in and out, and had several businesses of my own and so forth. But, God is a God of abundance and restoration. And will restore you and replenish you and build the abundance that he promised when we focus that, at least for me and my experience and the people I work with, when you focus our attention on doing that, and for me, that's the great fact for me,
Awesome. Jimmy.
I just wanted to say before I start asking my questions, to create a little bit of an affinity between us. First of all, thank you very much for your service. My father was also in the Navy. He spent 4 years in the Navy, spent a couple years as a fireman on the USS Enterprise, of all ships, and basically decided that the Navy was too tough for him, so he wouldn't join the Air Force. Spent another 14 years in the Air Force. You spoke of your father having been in the construction business and having built pools. One of my first jobs here in Vegas was at Nevada Rebar. So I used to bend rebar, which is in all pools, right?
Yeah.
So we did that. My question is faith-based. So just for clarity, did you surrender before you came out to Vegas from Palm Springs, or did you come out here and then surrendered here?
I came out to Las Vegas and surrendered here.
Okay. And was that a function of meeting people that put you back in that direction, or reintroduced you to your godliness?
No, it's just time with me and God. I moved to Las Vegas and I proceeded to drink myself to death for about 6 months. And then, I try to say that, but that's kind of what happens. We drink as much as we can, try to drink ourselves to sleep until a moment comes, kind of like a defining moment, a moment so clear that it changes the rest of your life and changes the projection you're on. So now in my previous sobriety in the Navy and all this stuff, I'd been baptized 4 times. I wanted to find God, but my willpower, my self-will prevented that from happening in the way it could. So I always call my 8 years ago at Las Vegas my second surrender. It was a moment when I wanted to give up everything that I was and everything that I had to just find God, the power within me.
We met you through an interview that you had with Jason DeRose from A Guiding Voice, which is an amazing organization.
Shout out Jason DeRose.
Yeah, and we know that you do a lot of work with Rob Banghart at Shining Light. I was so impressed in that interview with your ability to relate and communicate how the Lord had touched you, and your ability to express yourself biblically is truly, truly impressive. And I can see that it guides your everyday, right? That is such a central part to your being now, that I can imagine how powerful that is in your relationships in a work environment, right? So in your executive role at WestCare, how does your life experience translate to your ability to work in that corporate environment the way that you do?
That's such a great question. I don't know why. I just want to cry right now, tears of joy for what God has done in my life. But this is a good comparison. So when I was 18 and I worked for my father, he put us always in a leadership position. And I was, working for him, in our sickness, we're arrogant, we're self-righteous, we're judgmental, we're all these, we got these bad qualities, and that's what kind of leader I was. And then in the Navy is a slow, I got sober in the Navy, and I was slowly learning how to be a leader. And then I joined other organizations that helped me become a leader, sat down with John Maxwell for a while. And this is all coming through the 90s. I'm reading John Maxwell, learning how to lead, sailorization in the Navy, learning how to develop people underneath you. And probably the greatest experience I had was being in the military. And if you want to get promoted, then you train 3 people underneath you. You train people to replace you. And that's kind of how it works greatly in the military. You train your replacement and you make people better than you. And so we need God really to balance this out, and to be loving and nurturing, and to be compassionate with other people and their problems, and understanding that they're human, just like me. We're human, and people need to go through things, and they need to know. Like, there's this guy. I was a work center supervisor in avionics, and there's this guy that he didn't want to do anything. Night after night, and he was kind of like Eeyore, and I'm kind of like, I'm kind of like Tigger, especially with caffeine. I'm like, and so then finally, as I backed up, I'm reading, some of John Maxwell's books. I'm backing up, and then one night I say, hey, what are you good at? And what do you like to do? And, what's important to you? And I started asking him these questions and looking at him eye to eye, which is Rob Banghart will all tell you, look, we want to look at someone eye to eye when we go out into the tunnels, eye to eye, because God's in you and God's in me. If God's in you and God's in me, we're one and the same. We're brothers. We're not greater than, and then getting rid of that idea that I'm better than you, because that's what the separation of will and soul do. Grandiosity is I'm better than you or worse than you. But, he told me, and he started getting eye to eye with me every night, and went out and produced work after that. It's getting to know your people, and giving people a chance to speak, to voice themselves, to grow, God, it's the most beautiful thing ever. Being selfish, and you can't get anywhere by yourself, and we have to help other people develop, and that's really the true test, and giving people a chance, and that's really what WestCare does. Everybody, I think that almost everybody that I know that works at WestCare was a knucklehead of some sort, just like the people in the Bible, just like all the people in the Bible were knuckleheads, so to speak. They had an issue, and when they were able to transmutate that issue, the power differential is so great and become, maximum service to God and the people about them.
Including Solomon, including Daniel, including Job, right?
Every one of them. Every one.
I was baptized in 1987 after, up until then, a lifetime of really trying to find out where my spirituality lied. And it didn't come together until after I had children. And when you hold your child in your hand and you understand that we were made in His image, right? That's the second that it hits home. And post baptism, what really struck me, and you've mentioned it indirectly, is that we are saved by grace through faith, and being saved by grace through faith gives us the ability to have that same grace and share it with others, right? To understand that people make mistakes, to understand that people have demons, to understand that life is everyone's journey, and nobody can experience somebody else's life. It's their journey. And so by grace, we're able to take that person, that struggling soul, and help them be a better employee, a better person. And I applaud you for having recognized that and being able to employ that in your day-to-day life. I mean, I find you to be an amazing person, and I'm just so thankful that you're on this show. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lloyd, and he'll have a couple of compelling questions.
Excellent.
Lloyd?
Thanks, Jimmy. In a lot of ways, the story is similar in terms of how you got out of the addiction is that you found faith, but that many of the people in my experience who have not been able to get out of the addiction have nothing. And my question is, what would you recommend for people that have not yet discovered faith, and is there anything that they can do to assist them?
Oh, that's such a great question. And oh gosh, I'm the luckiest man in the universe. Truly, I am. I feel like the luckiest guy.
You are lucky because it's not often that Lloyd asks great questions.
I get to mentor hundreds of people, so many, you know. Go ahead, Lloyd.
No, I was just going to let you answer, and my mom is not going to send Kobe his check this month, but it's okay.
We'll try again next month. So
I mean, it seems to me that those people that have accomplished it have discovered faith, right? It's part of the 12 steps. It's incorporated in there. It's incorporated in recovery. But that speaks to the people who are on the road to recovery. And I'm wondering what we can do for the people that haven't gotten there yet. How do we give them something to make them get there?
So the key to anyone that experiences and is living long-term recovery, which is faith-based, the key to that is absolute defeat. It's a necessary ingredient for long-term recovery. And we find it very difficult to motivate somebody who's on their spiral path downward. You know, Carl Jung says, do not look at it as downward, but we bottom, they call it. We call it absolute defeat. Well, a lot of people call it their bottom and things like that, or, you know, and a big problem to experience absolute defeat is enablement. You know, enabling and codependency. And sometimes we give people too many things that are on the bottom and they can't experience absolute defeat because we keep them floating just above the top of that, you know, by giving them things. We have to, the greatest gift that anybody can experience is absolute defeat. It opens a pathway to God and you know, but I think that, I got so many people I sponsor that are right there right now, and they're bouncing, and really is just, you know, the book, the big book, it says it talks about when and how to give, you know, and we're talking about how we get someone to the why, which is to be doomed to an addicted or alcoholic or overeating or whatever, to your affliction, to be doomed to an afflicted death, or to live on a spiritual basis, are not easy alternatives to face. And too often, well, always often, what's in our mind is why we're there. It has nothing to do with the affliction, but what's in our mind and how we think, how we feel, our ideas, emotions, and attitudes, and our beliefs, which are typically artifacts of, and it prevents us from being in the present moment, which disconnects us from source, and it doesn't allow source in. Too often, you know, the idea of God or our anti-idea of God or whatever, and plus all our beliefs, they fill up our barrel, you know, and we, all goodness just rolls right off of us. And so surrender comes through right after absolute defeat. And we have to experience absolute defeat in order for our will to stop wanting to be right for a small period of time. And this guy wrote Slaying the Dragon. He's like, there's a countdown clock ticking and hanging around our neck. As soon as we stop drinking for a moment, or stop using, or stop eating, or stop doing our affliction for just a moment, and then the ego starts to reconstruct itself. And so there's always this window of time of where defeat is useful. And then we got to start opening the door and kicking open the door to, you know, the idea of the power, the presence of God in our lives, which, you know, the fundamental presence of God lives deep down in every man, woman, and child. It's covered up with pomp, calamity, and the worship of other things, or like self, and you know, all those things that we're doing. And that's what I like to call the 55-gallon drum theory. It's filled with trash, and some of us have, you know, got 54 gallons full, or 55 and a half, or 50, and then we wake up, and then we turn on the news, and then we start thinking, and then we start smoking, or we start trash input, bad music, or whatever. We start filling our minds with stuff, and then we go throughout the day, and you know, we're driving and we flip somebody off, or someone cuts us off. We have no forgiveness, we have no acceptance, we're completely blocked, and then we go out and all goodness rolls off of us, and then we're just reactive to the world, and you know, we get worse and worse. They say it gets worse, never better, until we experience absolute defeat. And it's so necessary. And you know, I wish, you know, I wish I knew what would get someone to absolute defeat faster than anything. You know,
I want to continue to focus on this time period before the person goes for the recovery, because for the people around you, for the people around the addict, whatever the addiction is, that's the most painful time. And you're absolutely right. The hardest thing to do is to let them go to rock bottom. So if you could just address, you know, a few seconds each, how important is at that period of time, right, when it's getting family, friends, coaches, mentors, clergy, whoever it is that we should be bringing into their lives when they're at that low, to try to get them over to the hump and on the road to recovery.
Yeah, I mean, getting them into rehab, I think, is an important part, where we can sit down with them during that time period and start talking about what's, you know, recovery. Intervention seems to be pretty good sometimes, you know, when possible or when applicable. You know, sometimes people don't have that. And the biggest thing is not waiting for the perfect time. Just do it today. You know, tune in your radio to WORK and just getting busy on that, you know, because we get to live two lives in one, and just forcing us into the turning point, saying, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I've had enough. Do it today. And having non-shaming people around them that can encourage them in recovery. Too often our family knows nothing about recovery, nor what to do, and they think what they're doing is good, but it's all too often hurting them. And so getting the right people around that person is essential. And in today's world, you know, fentanyl is a killer, and you know, we're losing people at record rates, and so it's hard to watch them to get to absolute defeat, for sure. And so, you know, we're playing with a new thing in the playground right now with fentanyl, trying to help people and keep them from dying while we're helping them, you know, and do God's work. So yeah, it's a factor.
Turn it back over to you guys.
Kobe?
Yeah. I'm absolutely fascinated with listening to you about all of the stuff, your challenges that you went through. I still can't wrap my head around, you know, having an issue at 12 and looking at you today, right? That's an incredible journey and I guess milestone, right? And when you say absolute defeat, I think about that because I always used to say that, you know, most people who are going through challenges like that have to hit rock bottom, and I mean absolute rock bottom, before they either make a decision. And I think it's so hard for people that are watching that process or on the outsides because they care. You mentioned enabling. They care. They don't want to see you hit rock bottom. And so I think you're right in the way that we prevent people from hitting rock bottom, which absolutely prolongs the process. But how do you get in between that, right? It's my thought process.
Yeah, you know, and this is where WestCare really comes into play, and they help people. You know, we experience it every day in recovery that people come in on a court card and they're able to stay, and they get the book says sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And we get people in the recovery system. And I just talked to a guy in Missouri today who asked me to sponsor him. And he's like, man, I've been 28 rehabs. And I'm like, I get it, so let's get to work on what the problem actually is and stuff. But, getting people, we don't know. The biggest thing is we're not in the results business. God is. I mean, all we can do is plug them into God's system and let God do his work. And we don't know what role God is going to play in all of our lives. We can only stay in a constant state of surrender and try to get people into a place where they can, even for a moment, ask themselves some serious questions, and be courageous enough to look at an answer, or to be willing to hear an answer. And sometimes just starting on that one flimsy read is enough to get them to do something. And so get them around the right people that can encourage them to answer that question, and it is the right environment we need to do. And and we see miracles happen every day. Truly, we're doing that.
One thing that people may not know about you is that you're a certified life coach, right? Were you inspired to get that life coaching certification as a function of coming out of addiction? Or was it something that you had wanted to do just to enhance your ability to contribute to others?
Man, everything, thank you for asking me that. Everything is all about being a maximum service to God and the people about me, and putting forth the maximum effort in myself to be available for that calling. Spiritually, I became a member of Mind Valley in 2022.
Oh, okay.
A few years ago, right? June of 22, just a few years ago. And then they offered it, and I thought, oh, that's great. Like, I haven't yet to be paid or offered my services as a life coach. I just do it in conjunction with God's calling for me right now, because it helps put me in a position to be helpful, to God, to be able to, the more I'm able to understand, relate, and talk with somebody about that, about their life, is better. But I can tell you this, the big book from AA is the most masterful book ever. I've read it hundreds and hundreds of times, and it's better than any book out there. And every book out there copies their book, and so does counseling, and so does everything else. So,
What's the name of that book again?
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, the big book. 50 million copies been sold for a reason. People rewrite it a ton of different ways, and shout out to my church, Central Church, but I also go to Hope and everyone's church. Everyone is teaching from a 12-step standpoint these days, because realize that we suffer from a human condition, and that human condition, no matter what it is, kicks our butt.
Yep.
And it's effective,
And we're known and oftentimes judged by the people that we hang around with, right? I didn't know until today. I found out today that you have an affiliation. First, let me back up a second. You're an accomplished speaker. You have the ability to communicate with others, and that's a God-given ability. May have been honed over time, right? It may have been honed as a function of your experiences, but you have that ability to communicate. Another of our circle that has that ability is Kenneth Michael Perkins, right?
Yeah.
What an amazing man. And just the fact that you're in that circle and you know what he does, and you know how impactful he is and touching people's lives and giving them purpose and helping them become centered and helping them find God. I mean, he's just amazing. So that makes you an amazing person just because you're involved in that circle, and he's involved in your circle. And so it's a blessing how the Lord works through us and makes all these connections so that we're like-minded, and that we are able to encourage other people to come into our lives and find their own purpose. So I applaud you for all of that. Can you tell us a little bit more about WestCare? I'm very interested in what they do.
WestCare is an amazing organization that's been around, 50 years or so, and they have, the WestCare Foundation it's in, I believe, 20 states,
Mm-hmm.
Guam, Canada, Philippines, all in recovery and mental health and, restoration of the human spirit, and they're amazing. And I'm in the construction part where I oversee, projects. But what they do, just right down here, we have a project in Las Vegas where we're adding 68 apartments to WestCare's Women and Children campus. And, a woman can go there with or without a child, and they can stay there up to 2 years, and they help you get your life back in order. That's a long time not too many organizations will do that. You know what I mean? But they help them, reestablish. They get them, first, in recovery, they put you in a group, and then they segregate you into a smaller group, and then pretty soon you get to be by yourself. This recovery is it's an amazing process of transformation for the human, but in the same time uplifting the human spirit. And WestCare does that. They have rehabs, they have IOPs, they have like outpatient services, mental health areas, and crisis stabilization units, because when the human spirit is compressed, or when it's down to nothing, they help bring you back to a level where you can believe in yourself and you can interact with other humans. And it's amazing for an organization to work at that level and to lift people up, and they do it on all aspects. They're an amazing organization, and then most of the people that work for them have had some experience like that. You know what I mean? And to see them, live their best life working for WestCare is a testament to the great and wonderful power of God, and how, it manifests itself in returning that favor to other people through this organization, the WestCare is. And it's fantastic, and it's just, I'm grateful that I get to be my best self at WestCare, and where it's finally merged my own, construction and recovery together to be, to offer my best self out there.
Well, they sound like an amazing organization, and we would like to figure out a way to participate and promote. With that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment.
There's 6,500 foreign languages spoken in the world, but we believe only one language has the power to unite and connect the human race. We call that language BANK. And BANK is a methodology that we created, which is personality-based. It's rooted in the principles of the 4 personality types, dating back thousands of years, with a very powerful modern-day twist that, when applied to business and relationship, creates extraordinary results.
The number one problem is people want to make more money and they don't know how. So they have a problem actually connecting with their prospect, their lead, their customer, the person across from them. We teach them how to communicate more effectively and figure out their personality type and then how to get a better connection, and it automatically leads when people like you, they want to buy your product.
What we specifically do for our clients is we teach them how to increase their influence, their income, and their impact up to 300%.
It's opened doors that I didn't even know existed. I immediately saw the impact that it could have in education.
Not only has it increased my income, but it has absolutely changed my impact and my influence.
BankCode is an amazing technology that you can use to find out about other people rather than just yourself. I'm communicating better with my friends, my family, my clients.
Getting to yes sooner, getting to what matters to the person sooner by just listening to what they value.
And really just gave me an opportunity to connect with people in a much different way.
Making it a win-win-win for all the people involved.
It's literally lighting a fire inside of me that I didn't know I had.
And it was really a no-brainer for me.
There's a lot of assessments that are in the market. Ours is unique originally because most every other assessment was based in psychology, whereas Bank was based in what we call biology, spelled B-U-Y-ology, which was the science of buying behavior, or what we now understand as buy-in behavior. It's the science of communication. So it gave us a very unique ability to predict someone's buying behavior in less than 90 seconds, and now in nanoseconds using our Codebreaker artificial intelligence. So if you want to learn more and you want to come join our Make People Matter movement, you want to discover more about yourself and your personality, come visit us at codebreakerglobal.com. Codebreaker Global, make people matter.
Well, thank you, Carter, for introducing us to WestCare and what it does. Can you tell us a little more? I'd like a little more detail about what they do, because they just sound like an amazing organization, and they clearly have a good spokesperson here in you. So tell us a little more about WestCare.
Man, thank you. And WestCare, they offer more programs than typical, but every WestCare program is part of a continuum of a person-centered, trauma-informed care that is recognized for clinical excellence, coordinated access, and collaborative innovation. They offer treatment and rehabilitation, mental health and wellness, emergency support, housing opportunities, education and prevention, veteran services, criminal justice, and domestic violence. Those are the areas they specialize in. And we're building a new vet center up in Salem, Oregon, where I go down in the tunnels. Some of the guys, every Sunday I go down into the tunnels with actually Shine a Light and with Rob Banghart's crew. And we have a Sunday outreach that we just do it on Sundays, but we meet people down there. And of course they're like, well, I have a warrant, or they're scared. And so having the ability to be an advocate for someone, to help them take care of their stuff so they can, because they don't want to use anymore. They want to be off the street, and they're driven by fear, right? Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. And so, but being able to, to work with people to help them actually solve some of their perceived problems, or real or not, or whatever they are, help them walk through things, and then being advocates and help get into society where we can actually offer them help. It's such a wonderful thing, right?
Well, and thank you for being involved with them. Thank you for introducing them to us. Lloyd.
Yes, sir. I am here.
I'm sure you have additional questions. I mean, we could speak with Carter for a couple of hours, no problem.
Of course. Just wanted to say, what's the one piece of advice you would give someone if they know someone or someone they care about is suffering from addiction?
Well, the answer is always love. And it is always the solution. You know, the solution is never at the level of the problem. And the solution is always love. And since we know God is complete love, it's always the answer for us. Too often, family members are codependent themselves because a healthy family doesn't produce a sick person. So to understand codependency is really a big step in, helping them understand themselves as well as their child. As an example, my dad is alcoholic. My mom couldn't drink because she got seizures. So she was a dry co-addict, we call her. I was alcohol, my brother's alcohol, my sister, I guess, alcohol, my brother, heroin, and so what happens in that family is, everybody looks at my brother as the black sheep, but not as one of the equal sheeps. We judgmentalism, judgment, resentment, and contempt is what we produce in our codependency. And so we look at we look at my brother as being like, you can't function on just alcohol. You need something different, but really love and understanding, compassion to what we produce from our own spirit is really where the first work needs to start. I wrote a book a few years ago, and now I'm still working on the other half of, but on the matter of parenting, the prevention of adolescent addiction. I love working with adolescents, but being a parent, whether every addict is a grieving spirit of a child, and whether they're 50 years old or 20, they're trying to manage a grieving spirit, and to get your own needs met through your own resources first. It's like flying an airplane. They say, put the mask on you first. Put your mask on before you put it on your child. And so the best family member can do is put the mask on themselves first and try to understand what the whole thing is all about in the beginning so that you can offer them love and not judgment, And that's probably the toughest thing that any one of us will ever do, is to be a parent and to look at ourselves first. But that's really what I think needs to happen.
Amen. Amen. I am honored, and I'm sure that my co-hosts are equally honored to have you in our studio. I appreciate everything that you do. And we have a portion of our show that we refer to as shameless self-promotion. And so we'd like to turn the stage over to you, and you can say whatever you would like about bringing people to you, bringing people to WestCare, bringing people to Rob Banghart and Shine a Light, whatever you want to do to help educate and illuminate people so that they know how to get in touch with you if they would like to.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on here. And it's an honor to be invited to be a part of people's lives. And even, when I spoke on Saturday, and I'm like, thank you for letting me be a part of your life. So probably, people can find me on Facebook, Carter Singh, and my organization is enlighten.net. It's just, I'm slow to put it together, but it's Next Level Transformation Network is what it will be. And as we evolve into that, and books and other things like that, but service is the highest level of, I have to live a life of service, and anonymity at some level too, in the big organization, that the avocation of what I do with people out there. But we're losing people at such a great rate. We really do need more people out there learning about, the human condition, and coming from a point of trying to understand the human condition more than judgment. And I don't know, the best or support people that are helping, and just like Shine a Light is a great organization, and the veterans places and things like that, is I forget the Arnold Stalk, his name is, sorry Arnie, and but I can be out there, I can be found out there in the universe. If you find my name and you want to track me down, or you want to know about recovery or anything like that, friend me on Facebook and or send me a message, and I always get back to everybody.
Lloyd, closing comments?
Echo what everybody else said, that it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. And keep doing what you're doing. You're getting great results and making a true impact in a lot of people's lives.
And thank you so much, Lloyd. And thank you so much for having me.
Kobe?
Yeah. Thank you for being here, number one. Number two, we talk to employees, but it's really a personal development program disguised as an employee program. And that's why some people don't understand our mission, because we're not talking about the basic employee stuff. We're going deeper. And I think your journey speaks volumes in that, because at a very young age, you had to navigate through something that most of us didn't, or most people don't have to navigate through, right? It's just listening to your story. It fascinates me to see you sitting here in such a powerful position to go through something like that. Because for me, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I can do something like that and be sitting here today. To me, that shows strength. But I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. I think that I think you're going to go very far. I hope you go faster. You said you're still working on some stuff, right? If you need help with that, man, I think we're in a position to be able to help out and transition and do some of that stuff, man. But really honored that you came and spent your time with us, really, and to spend with our audience, to the people that we talk to. So that's pretty much my statement for you coming, man. I'm moved since when you came, but I was moved the last time I heard you speak. So to me, that's powerful and in itself, and needs to be put out there, because if it moves me like that, and I promise you, I'm not hard to move. Jimmy's easy. I'm not hard to move. If it's powerful like that for you to move people, man, I think that should be out to the masses. So I thank you just for that alone, and to thank you for inspiring me today.
And I'd like to close with an observation. The observation is that you said, not several times, but many times, you said the word gratitude. You exuded your gratitude for many, many different things. And I think that gratitude deserves to be recognized, and we need to be able to show our gratitude to you as well, and the gratitude for the education, for the awareness, and for the opportunity for us to help spread the word through this podcast. And we will do that. We will, whatever we can to do as we move forward in working with people such as yourself and Rob Banghart and Jason DeRose and Anise Labrum, people helping out the homeless. We gravitate to that message, and thank you for the opportunity and the education, so that we can help spread that to everybody else as well. So
thank you so much. Can I answer Another question, the
Yes, sir.
question that Lloyd really asked me, and gratitude is, and so if someone needs to, if they're sick and tired, seek to transform. And the first, absolute defeat is necessary, but the necessary thing that we need to do is start in gratitude, turn everything into gratitude. And I've found God more times, like by writing a gratitude love letter inventory and thanking him for what's wrong with me and what's right with him. Gratitude love letter, over 1,000 of them. And there are logs of a white light experience that I had, letting go of my own willpower and finding the power of God. Gratitude is the key.
And in this season in particular.
And this season, yeah.
Everybody take that opportunity to show their gratitude.
Yeah.
Show the gratitude for being able to wake up on this earth every day.
For sure.
Show the gratitude for the love that you receive from family members, from friends, from the stranger on the street that will come up and say, is there anything I can do for you today?
Yeah.
And with that, Carter, again, man, thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it. This is Great Employees Matter. It's good, right? This is Great Employees Matter, greatness, excellence, and motivation, where we help you really, like I said earlier, it's a personal development program disguised as a employee program. So come get this wisdom, come get this knowledge. We had a great guest today, and looking forward to having more in the future. Looking forward to seeing you in the future. Remember, greatness, excellence, motivation, always be a gem.
Hey, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye.